Leading through change. Now, this might look like a really complicated chart with all kinds of detail on it. And I suppose in a way it is. It could be rather intimidating. But really, each one of these is just a manageable bite-sized piece. And isn't that the way we do best? So to take a look at some of these, I want to drill down on this table of contents here and see what we can see. When we do that, we see that there are all kinds of categories in here. But depending on the size or the girth of your project, some of these might or might not be utilized. But no matter what your project is, these diamond-shaped elements are always going to be involved. They are absolute must-haves for effective change and really, in my opinion, for effective leadership. So when we drill down on them, the first is setting clear goals. Now, obviously, it's to help leaders keep track of progress and maintain accountability. But really, when we look down a little bit deeper, setting goals is a very specific way to go about communicating what it is that you want. Many of you know my rule. What do I want? By when? And how will I know it? Now here I've offered a collection of idea joggers that might help you with ideas on what those clear goals really are that you want to set, that you think is going to create the effective change that you want. But what you really want to do is sit down and go over those specific goals and metrics. Are there going to be any milestones? I mean, if this is a 2-day project, then no, there aren't. But you could have 10 or 20 or 15 milestones. This could be a 2-year project. You want to really lay out that what, by when, and how will I know? And how many milestones you're going to have. A lot of that is involved in elements of the communication and the feedback that you'll offer. Some of those bigger categories that we're going to get back to talking about. But you really, really want to spend some time here in setting some very, very clear goals for your team so that they understand to the best of their ability how it is they may serve you and your higher goals, your higher intentions here as a leader. I think the most important goal of all the things that we're going to talk about today, though, the most important element is that leaders go first. Leaders set the tone. And if we aren't willing to step up and walk this talk that we want our people to do, I can't imagine why we would ever expect others to follow in our lead. Although I confess, I see an amazing amount of leaders doing this and requesting this of their people, and then wondering why it doesn't work. When we look into leaders go first a little bit deeper, here's some questions, again, just idea joggers for yourself, that you could ask. How is it going to look for you to go first? How are you going to be showing up every day? Are there things you're going to stop or start doing? What are things that you absolutely will not tolerate during this change that's going to help make that so? Are there people's perspectives or attitudes you're not going to tolerate? Are there boundaries that you are going to refuse to let cross? Are there any sacrifices that you need to make in order to really walk this talk? Are there attitudes you're going to need to bring? Maybe some of you aren't the perkiest lot out there and you think it's going to be really hard to communicate some of this enthusiasm that you might feel you need to have to keep your team supporting your efforts and your goals and your intentions. And you're probably right. So what does that look like? What is it going to be? What are ways that you can lead that team by going first? Oops. Okay. Then we want to enlist supporters. Now supporters, might be some of the people on the teams that you're going to build, but that comes at a later step. Supporters really are the people who are going to support these efforts emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. They could be spouses, family members, people on your team, staff. They could be outside supporters. They could be hired supporters, or they could be free. They could be your customers, for goodness sakes. They could be people like me. But they help build momentum. They help gain enthusiasm around the project, right? And when it starts to lag, they can be the people that you call on to shore up the project. And so you want to list those key supporters, right? And you want to start to consider what kind of roles can they play? How are you going to get them buying into your little package? And then how are you going to keep them engaged with it as well? Now, a lot of this is really going to be setting that up and then kind of hoping that they really turn it back around on you, right? But there's a lot to dig down in there. And you really want it to take a little bit of time there to say, how am I going to encourage and excite these people to want to help me with my cause? Then they're setting the path for change. Now, this is a little bit different from hardcore goal setting because there's a bit more to it. It's not just about the goal. It's what's all the other stuff that needs to happen to make these people have a clear path to success. So again, some idea joggers here, right? Of course, you want to talk about those milestones, but your overall strategy, get them inspired. What is this change that you want to make? What's the reason for making it? What becomes possible when this change is made, right? How will you feel when the change is made? I want to spend an extra minute on that feel thing because a lot of times change might be about results and outcomes, but it's also about how you feel about a thing. It's also about how a customer or a client feels about a thing. And so, of course, consequently, it's also often about how your staff and your team feel about a thing. I want you to keep that in mind because the feelings of this effective change very much empower whether or not it actually happens and sticks. Okay. Then there's the teams you need to form, the resources they need, right? The critical paths. Don't let them get off of those key tasks that need doing to make sure that all those goals are met and those milestones are met and those resources are being utilized, right? And then what else? What's missing here? Everyone's journey is going to be a little bit different. So you really want to explore this. This is a great brainstorming area right here. You get a lot of people, throw a bunch of stuff in a bucket and then dig through that bucket. See what's essential about it. Okay. Now here we talk about creating teams. Now teams can work, that old idea of a silo, I really think is an old idea, but they can work in semi-silos, and you really want some of that depending on the size of the project because focus is clarity. Focus brings things down to the essentials so that they aren't distracted by other stuff, which is why you create a team in the first place. You want to give a collection of people some focus on something to get that darn thing done. Pardon me. So you want to work those out. And when you're looking at that, some ideas that you want to consider. Now here I have team name, and I don't really mean that like the Bengals or anything. What I mean by that is, what is their goal? What's their objective? You want to give them a really clear title for what they're trying to get done here, for their purpose. And then under that, who's their leader? What are going to be their measurements of success? Who's on that team? And then what support and tools do they need from you, right? What do they need from you that helps them get from this A to B place that you're trying to get them to go? Then there's about providing appropriate support. I mean, we can allocate and we can delegate all we want. But if you're not supporting that change, it's just really not going to happen. Again, that's about walking that talk, right? So here again, some brainstorming, idea joggers for what you might consider that you could bring to your team as support. Do they need new technology? Do they need incentives? Are some of your people really going to be going out on a limb, and could they use a little ground cover from you in order to go out there without getting too much fire from the rest of the team, right? What kind of trainings do they need? Do you have a budget set out for them, right? Do you need to take things off of their plate and delegate them to somebody else so that they can get this done? Do you need to just break down and hire somebody new? And then if so, what's it look like with them moving forward? Can you integrate them? Will that be a really huge element once this project is completed, in fact? Right? All these different things to consider. So just some idea joggers, again, to see if we can get you going there. Of course, you can always call your coach or trusted advisor as well. So leading through change. Boy, there's a lot to it, isn't there? So when we start to look at change, what are some of the things you want to ask yourself? So here's some good questions. Like, what's working in favor for you to make this change, right? When you look at all of these areas of subject, what are the areas of these do you look at and go, oh, got that one, right? Oh, that one's an issue. And then what do you look at that is like a clear obstacle or anticipated resistance? Is it in the form of people or is it in the form of things? And if so, drill down on those. Get to know them. Know thy enemy, right? What's your plan to lead this change as the person that you are, right? And if you're not used to being vulnerable with your team by being a person, get over it. Get over it. It's time. It's time to help them know who you are so that they can care about what you want, so that they can help you achieve it. Okay. Now we have communicate. And that's why I went back to that leadership piece a little bit, because this communication is really absolutely so important when it comes to all this stuff and making it really work out. Whether you're at the top, in the middle, or really at the very bottom of this scale, wherever you are in your company's organization, it does not matter. Communication is absolutely imperative. The rest of the team has to know how it's going, and they have to know if you're pleased with how it's going. So you want to really drill down and discuss, what is your process going to be? What are the ways you're going to communicate? Who will you communicate to? And what will their filter down system be? How often are you going to communicate? And starting when? And this when is really elemental to each project or sub-project, or each WIG or sub-WIG, if you're from the PDS team, right? Or each milestone that you have that you've chosen, right? How many per milestone? And is it going to be timed, or is it going to be by progress based? Things you want to consider, some brainstorming, small group meetings, large group meetings, one-on-ones, newsletter, walk in the halls with posters in your hands, memos, town halls, emails, blogs, right? What is the system? What are all the systems that you're going to use to let everybody know that you haven't lost focus, and that they shouldn't lose focus, and that this thing is moving forward, that you are progressing, and you are making the change? And so, in a nutshell, that is leading through change. I hope this has helped in any way, get you some enlightenment. Wherever you guys are in your projects, especially if you're on my PDS team, we know we've got tons of support there for you with your controlling calendars and such. But when you look at this overview, think about what's missing. And then on our next coaching call, let's hash it out. Let's bring it up and let's see where we can take it. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day. This is Kat Nesbitt, Coach Kat.